Hi, my name is Adriel William, and today's video is going to be about interviews of dental school. The knowledge I'm going to be talking about, the information, it also coincides and correlates with medical residency program, because most of these organizations, the way they conduct their interviews, the format of the questions, and the stuff they are seeking in a candidate is pretty much similar. So I think that could also help medical residency side. But before I continue with the video, there are a couple of things I gotta tell you. I'm aware of the interview invites that came for University of Colorado, and I'm gonna share some of the knowledge that I had from my personal experience. But the disclaimer is, all the knowledge that I'm sharing with you is coming from my own observation, and this has nothing to do with any organization or any official. After that, the second thing is I just recently launched my website for Purpose Driven Dentistry. The link is shared in the description. If you haven't seen it, go ahead, do watch it. I think my friends who helped me with this, they did a really good job, and thank you. And thirdly, what I'm going to try to talk about is I'm going to tell you about the whole video is going to be a bit longer. So if you don't have enough time, I would say watch it at a time when you have more flexibility. But because my ideas are going to be quite random, they're going to flow a lot like most of my video does. You have to be high on openness. Your personality should be high on openness to kind of go through my videos. But I will try to even talk about, I usually talk about the 4 schools that I got accepted, but I got 6 interview invites, and let me talk about the rest of the 2, what happened with them, and hopefully we'll even talk about University of Colorado's interview. So the thing with dental school interviews throughout US, and one thing I want to talk about is that if you want to break it down into schools of the East Coast, school of the West Coast, school of the Midwest, Southwest, and then make products out of them and then sell them each separately, well, that's a really good idea. But the honest truth is, all of these schools have pretty much similar interview structure. There are some changes, but those are very superficial. When you look at a high resolution, the stuff they are looking for in a candidate is pretty similar. So if you grasp the foundational idea of the whole interview process and the admission process, you can work anywhere in any school. That's the whole purpose of making this video. So first of all, let me tell you what the whole interview for any school is usually like. Most of the time they will ask you about questions regarding your personality type. Tell me about yourself, what kind of person you are, what's your background, something that you wrote down in your personal story. They will walk through it in your personal statement. If there's a question mark, if you wrote something which falls into a gray zone, which doesn't make sense, or which sounds something very unique, they want to talk about that. So that's your, and if you Google like personality, Google dental school interviews, you will get a long list. It's not a very big thing. People make a big hoax about it, that the interview questions, this and that, they are all on Google if you want to go and see. And pretty much it's you need to understand this is a conversation that is going between you and the admission panel. And the other thing I want to tell you, that you're not begging for your admission. You are negotiating for your admission. And how do you do that? First of all, you need to realize if they call you for an interview, they like you on the paper. Now they want to see in person what kind of human being you are. And there are some specific characteristics in any given human being. If you allow yourself to depict those characteristics, you can get ahead in life and even in the interview process. So they will ask you questions about your personality, how you manage stress, your time, your past experience, your failures, stuff like that. In addition to that, the second thing they usually ask is about the ethical side, because you need to understand the ethics of the East, the social norms, and what's right and wrong in the society, in the medical system, and in the dentistry. in countries like Pakistan, India, Saudi Arabia, China might be different from US, and that's something they want to see, whether you are assimilated, aware, and you know how the system works, and will you be able to synchronize. And there's a high probability that you won't know everything, but what you could do is show that you are someone who's very flexible, somebody who's a lifelong learner, somebody who is malleable, somebody who could be taught. And that's the quality that most schools like to hear. Along with that, the third thing they want to talk about are questions which are your selling pitch. I usually say two questions that are your selling pitch is why you want to come to this institute and why should we pick you. And I would give high emphasis on these questions, because this is the time when you have to come off and sell yourself and tell who you are and why you like that institute and what is the common ground between that school. For example, some school might be really good in research, and I can talk about, oh, your school is really good in research, that's why I like it. But do I have any research in my own resume? Have I done any research? Maybe not. Is it relatable? Not. Then why am I saying it? It wouldn't make any sense. Just because I read it off Google or their website and I'm claiming it up there doesn't make a very solid and strong ground for negotiation. So my advice with the candidate that I usually work with, and I suggest them that find something which is common between you and the institute. That makes much more sense. Research on it. Talk to people who study there. Talk to people who teach there if you can. So this kind of expose you. And even above that, if you can get a virtual tour, if you can go to an open house, that kind of opens up doors for you. Along with that, there are few tips, few things that I usually share with any candidate. And there are some things that while giving interview you need to understand. Just like any Viva oral test, when you're having a conversation with anybody, you're the one who's navigating the conversation. So if I'm talking to you and if I'm asking you questions, wherever you will leave your answer, the next question might come off from there. So you are pretty much in control of the conversation and where you're dragging it. And I've talked to a couple of people on the medical side who were senior resident who used to take interviews for medical candidates. And they said, we have a list of questions that is given to us. And when I discussed the question with that medical resident, it was similar to what we have in the dental side. So most of the institute, they can't really dig deep into your life, into your religious view, into your political view. So they have a very small spectrum of questions they are going to talk about. So I don't believe it's very difficult if you grasp the foundational ideas. And that's what I try to work with candidates. And some things that you should also be aware is that you're not just answering questions, you're representing yourself. After a couple of minutes, people don't hear what you say. They look at you how you say it. Are you honest about it? The stuff that you are sharing or speaking, do you even believe in it? And your posture, your eye contact, your dressing, the way you express yourself, all of that matters. You need to take that in consideration. This might sound very obscure or new to some people, but if you have an interview coming up, I would suggest start doing some minor or small or whatever your flexibility is. Start doing some exercise on a daily basis. Why do I say it? Because when you stand straight or when you sit straight and with your shoulders back, it depicts a strong depiction, a strong expression of confidence. And there's a biological reason to it. Your body releases serotonin whenever you exercise, and that boosts your morale, and it keeps your depression and neurotic emotions in control. And this is proven psychologically. So I would suggest if you have a coming up interview, utilize that. Learn to make eye contact. One other thing is, most probably the attire you're going to wear in your interview, you should be comfortable in it. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you should be professionally wearing something very professional and comfortable as well. And that's something, there are a lot of YouTube videos on it if you want to do some research. Along with that, coming to the questions, so let me tell you about what happened in my other 2 school invites. So I got 6 invites. Out of those, so it was USC, UCLA, NYU, University of Colorado, UOP, and then Indiana. So I got accepted in 4 except for UOP and Indiana. Why didn't I got accepted up there? UOP interview was for 5 days. So I didn't had enough time to take off from my work for 5 days and sit in the interview because I already had 3 invites, 3 acceptances. And when it came to Indiana, I actually screwed up that interview. I said something which I knew exactly at that time. When I said it, the interview went off with me. His reaction, I knew his facial expressions were not pleasing with me anymore. And that happens to us on a daily basis when we are talking to people. And I think that was a learning spell for me. I was able to understand the do's and don'ts and how to avoid some questions or at least be educated about them. And I think failure kind of walks along with your strength. So that's something you need to incorporate. Along with that, my advice for people who are applying to University of Colorado, it's usually the virtual interview is usually, I think it's comparatively toughest one as compared to many other schools because it's quite longer. Usually the question types are similar to what I said, at least in my case it was. One extra thing that was in University of Colorado's interview, except for as compared to others, was that there was radiographic interpretation and that you have to do. So you also want to work on that. That's a very strong part. And the interview in my time lasted from 30 to 45 minutes. I don't know how this year is going to be. And comparatively, I don't know how they would be conducting it, but you want to present yourself in the best way. You want to know your basic questions. You want to know yourself, because why do they ask you about your personality type? Because they want to make sure any person that any dental school is getting into their system should be a team player, should have the emotional intelligence and the capacity to work in United States and work with people of the United States. So that's something you want to keep in consideration. Beside a lot of other suggestions and improvements that you could incorporate, one thing I would say is to practice more and more in front of the camera. I was fortunate that I had a friend who actually did a really good research for me on regarding Zoom, is that make sure that you look in the camera rather than looking at yourself. That's one of the biggest trap on communicating on Zoom. We end up looking at self all the time. The other thing is setting up a good background, and I would suggest that always match up with the energy of the interviewer. If you're having communication with anybody, if that person is using a very low and deep pitch voice, you want to match his communication level. If somebody is really happy and loud and all over the room, try to match up with them. I'm not saying go equally loud, but do not cause imbalance of communication. Have the same level of communication with them. And one of the other things that a lot of candidates talk about, and I feel nobody talks about it on YouTube, is that how much American accent should I have in order to get into a school? The honest truth is, you should be comfortable enough to explain yourself regardless of what your accent is, because this is an international student program. It's not an American student program. So by the end of the day, all the people who are going to be with you are going to be international, and somebody's going to be really good with their accent and somebody might have a different accent. Because let me explain you, I took a mass communication class before I got into dentistry, and they taught us that any accent which is different is due to the musculature of the tongue, because the way you keep using your tongue muscles, it adapts according to that. So there's nothing wrong in having a different accent, but if you could practice over time and make your pronunciation a bit more American, which happens eventually, and not be uncomfortable with it, because there's a very fine zone when you can go a little bit American with your accent, but you're not faking it. And that's where you want to be, is to be comfortable and then have an accent which is assimilated with the local culture. Don't go over the board and try to act somebody which you're not, and I don't recommend it. And I even try to incorporate this something in my own life. I want to be audible. I don't want to be totally American. I was born in Pakistan. There's something which is not going to go out of me regardless how much I try, and I learned to acknowledge them and utilize them in the best way possible. And that kind of helps you because you become far more confident. And I've seen people like that. If you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was ridiculed for his awkward accent, but look at him now. I think one of the biggest thing he's known for is his voice and his accent. So stuff like that, you have to find your sweet spot, your comfort zone, where you could be comfortable in your progress and also acknowledging your past. And beside that, there are far other stuff that I could tell you, but I think the video will be going very long. But I could assist you furthermore if you're looking for personal coaching in your interviews. And I'm at this time not helping many candidates because of my time schedule. But the reason I made this video is hopefully even throughout the year and the cycle, people will be able to utilize this. And I hope they will be able to make the best out of this. And if you need my assistance and you want to contact me, there's going to be a link shared in the description. You can utilize that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me as well. And I hope I see you in a much more meaningful video. Meanwhile, what you can do for me is you can share this video and keep me in your best wishes. Hopefully I will see you soon. Take care.